Climate change is the most defining issue of our generation. If we don't get it right, in a dozen years, we're screwed. So my plea to you is tonight, I think, if not you, who? And if not us, when? I always think of the Lorax, who's going to speak for the trees. My confession tonight is that, maybe Dermot, you're going to know what I'm going to say, is that I'm not an environmentalist. I don't like the term environment. It doesn't sing to me, it doesn't create an image, my imagination doesn't flourish. It's something out there, it's something separate, it's something I'm disconnected from. And if I've learned anything in the last few years with Friends of the Earth, is that we need connection. Connection with planet, connection with people, connection with ourselves. We don't destroy the planet if we're happy inside, and I think one of the big issues at the minute is that we need to resolve so many issues, but the environmentalists won't do it. The Green Party won't do it. Friends of the Earth certainly won't do it. It needs a spiritual renewal at the deepest level of society that involves everyone. This is my second Green Party event in a day. My legs are talked off me all day. I was down in Doyle and I was with the baker, the candlestick maker, a civil servant, talking about how to build a movement in Northern Ireland. A retired civil servant, a retired lecturer, and a care worker. These are human beings. These are not environmentalists. Every single one said, I'm here because I'm a human being. And I think we need to de-environmentalate, what's a strange term, the environmental movement. I could give you a list of things. I'm pretending to look at notes here, but that's only pretending because I don't really know what I'm going to say. 5 things to do to save climate change, 10 things to do, 15 things to do. When I read this stuff every day, what I totally understand is the need for collective action. We don't have local systems that are functioning. When our government did function, it turned its back on environmental issues, on our seas, on our air, on our water. We have 40 breeding curlew left in Northern Ireland. Our forests, our native forests are gone. We've turned our back on these systems. They're gone. This is ecocide in slow motion. And we've got one generation to do something about it. On a global level, we know that 10%, it's easy to solve climate change, 50% of the world's emissions come from 10% of the population. We could sort it out in a year and a half if we had the global structures to do it. The reason why I believe in, did you call it active hope, John? The Joanna Macy model of movement building. First of all, you have the Great Confusion. I think a lot of us are in that position. Then the Great Awakening. Some of us are beginning to see the apocalypse, which from the Latin means lifting, in Greek is it? The lifting of the veil. The emperor has no clothes. And then we're involved in something called the Great Turning. And I think a lot of us are in a shift towards that direction. When I joined Friends of the Earth 7 years ago, the Gulf development was just approved at our only World Heritage site at Runcorry. And people started crying, the National Trust took a case and they failed. That was 7 years ago. And in that 7 years, the guy who left me here tonight said, I'll not bother going to the Green Party meeting in East Belfast. There'll be 3 people there. And I know them all. There's a really big crowd tonight in East Belfast with that terrible language of climate change catastrophe. I go to meetings now in Tyrone. I'll be one at Limavady on Saturday night talking about pig farming. It's in the Roe Valley Arts Centre. It's already sold out. Tyrone 5 years ago, there was 3 people at meetings, mostly men, mostly crying. Now it's full of women. And the atmosphere is absolutely vibrant. The last one I attended was 700 people. Fracking was stopped in Northern Ireland because people took to the streets. They resisted the fossil fuel industry. The biggest project ever proposed by the public sector in Northern Ireland was a £760 incinerator in Derry. That was opposed by community resistance. The A5 road, the £1 billion road that was going to tarmac our way to United Ireland from Loughnacloyd and new buildings, was resisted by a legal challenge by a group of farmers and a care worker. You have incredible power. You can challenge all these systems if you want. The challenge in East Belfast at the minute is huge. It's a £250 million gas-fired power station. Don't think about it as a climate change issue if you don't want to, but it is. If we're the defining generation, we need to stop that. You can stop it. If you want to stop the biggest fossil fuel piece of infrastructure to deal with climate change for future generations, you can do it. If you want to know how, talk to John Martin, talk to myself, come and have a meeting and we'll discuss strategy. Because we can't do it ourselves. And I think we confuse a lot of people in government and elsewhere at the minute because there's incredible power, there's thousands of people now getting involved. There's no leaders, that's difficult for them. There are multiplicity of new groups emerging. There was 6 new groups established last month alone, west of the Ban, in an area that would be considered to be barren for ecological consciousness. I'm not just saying this because this is false hope, this is real hope. I see this every time, I'm doing a lecture in the morning somewhere, there's 2 tomorrow night. There's a resurgence of grassroots mobilisation because when we don't have our government, and when we did have one, it didn't function environmentally. We don't have a Climate Change Act, don't have an independent EPA, we're captured by corporate interests, we're captured by our own lack of imagination. People go somewhere else. That's why we went to the Dáil this morning, we went to somebody else's parliament, we'll be in the European Investment Bank, I'm not telling you why, next month. We're going to the European Commission for certain things next week, we'll be in the Aarhus Convention in December. We're going to the Gothenburg Protocol to try and stop the chronic ammonia emissions that are suffocating 98% of protected special areas of conservation in Northern Ireland. And if that doesn't work, you go to the courts. And if that doesn't work, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Because the courts are a very conservative institution as well. Colm Sands tried to protect an oakwood last week. He lost in court, but he's won the war. Because what he did, he created a community around Estrevor that will protect that forest for the next 200 years. Because he's changed the possibility of the local people to make a difference. So this interconnected web, I would probably call it an ecosystem of dynamic grassroots action is happening. That's why there's more than 3 people here tonight. That's why all these changes are happening at a very grassroots level. I'll give you a couple of examples of how this model actually sort of is working, both for the climate and elsewhere. Zero Waste Northwest are a very interesting group. I mentioned the incinerator that was stopped. That's what we call a site battle. The next big changing issue is there structural change? They've worked with the council, they have a zero waste strategy, sort of coming together. Last month they had an Enough Stuff Festival to change people's consciousness. So that relationship between site battle, structural change, consciousness change is the fluidity, is the glue that holds all these successful campaigns together. This is a wee bit academic, I'm sorry. I got obsessed with Joanna Macy about 2 years ago. I've invited her over next year and I discovered she's 92. But she said she might come anyway. She developed this beautiful model that this is not about environmentalism anymore. This is about human beings reconnecting with humanity and with the planet in their neighbourhood. And she said that if you work on a site battle, that's fine. If you work on structural change, let's change a zero waste strategy, let's pass a law, let's have an environmental code, that's fine too. Or if you want to change your values, this spiritual renaissance, which I think is fundamental, that's fine too. But real change happens in the spaces between those 3 areas, about place, about government, and about ourselves. And I see this happening all the time. I see the most remarkable people coming together. Who would have thought that the fracking industry in Northern Ireland was stopped by loyalists in Carrickfergus? Who would have thought that it's Republicans in Tyrone who are primarily going to stop the biggest mining endeavour probably in the history of Western Europe? This is the biggest cyanide processing plant in Greencastle. Who would have thought that the loyalists in Carrickfergus are working with Republicans in Tyrone, cross-fertilising, sharing strategy, mobilising together in ways that you will never see, beautiful secret gestures that no one will ever see. And that's just one example. Because the fracking groups came together to support each other, the fracking and the mining groups are coming together to support each other, the people who are interested in positive money and positive social change and community generation are supporting the need for real farming in rural areas, the need for real economic development, for protecting the land, air and the water. The language has totally changed in the last 2 years. We're no longer protesters. The first thing I say to a group is, don't tell me what you're against, what are you for? And I think about it, they're now protectors. They're water protectors, they're land defenders. This is deep indigenous cultural change, which I see remarkably on a daily basis in Northern Ireland. When I look back at the Giant's Causeway development and the tearfulness, how on earth could our government approve a huge tourism development on our only World Heritage site? On the radio that morning it was announced, someone said, this wilderness was made to be a golf course. I just nearly fell off my chair. The developer went to a meeting, a friend of mine was at it, and it was a meeting of religious groups in the area. And I want to be very respectful to the person, but they said, you know, God has made a machine, and that machine is better than nature, and it's called the JCB. Everybody cheered. That was 7 years ago, and I thought, this is about values. This is not about laws. Laws are disrespected anyway. Laws can be... Laws about power. I'm in court every day, you know. I can say this is about power relationships and about theatre and dynamics. It's not about the law. It's about something else. It's about our deep values. And I wouldn't stand up here and sell you a pup. Those values are changing, and I see it with not 5, not 10, but I say hundreds of people coming together in very deep ways at the minute. That's what a movement is. And if I can do anything to encourage you to do something about climate change in East Belfast, is first of all, that very basic question, if it isn't you, who's it going to be? And you've got an amazing opportunity to stop one of the most dangerous developments ever in the history of Ireland, I would say, which is this huge gas-fired power station. We've only got a few years. And what happens when you're in oppositional mode is that you create a context for community development, community resistance, theatre, plays. When Colm Sands lost in court last week, what was his reaction? To sit down and write lots of letters, to write out beautiful messages on his Facebook page, to organise another community festival to celebrate the oak forest. And that's what happens when you come together in a decentralised, horizontal, non-hierarchical, non-leadership ways. You will find opportunities that will astound you. So that's why I've moved from the great confusion, I think, to the great awakening, because I see people lighting up all the time, to what I think is happening now, the great turning. And that's why there's not 3 of you here tonight. I'm glad I wrote those notes out, because I just made that up. Cheers, thanks.